It is April 1912. The Titanic has just struck an iceberg. Now time to panic. Not quite. We have been assured that this unsinkable ship will be fine. It's just a little gash. They can patch it up in no time at all. Surely there is nothing to fear. But we know better. This is a disaster waiting to happen. What did the crew of the Titanic see when they looked up into the night sky? How could they have known that their fate was sealed? Join us today as we look up at the stars and reveal what the Titanic crew saw before they died. But first, a word from today's video sponsor. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live on Mars? Now you can find out with CuriosityStream. Their documentary, The Challenges of Living on Mars, explores everything from growing food on a red planet to the possibility of nuclear war on Mars. CuriosityStream is an entertainment powerhouse with thousands of fascinating documentaries and non-fiction titles for everyone. You can watch anytime, anywhere. And now is the perfect time to subscribe because for a limited time, you can save 26 by using our link. Don't forget to use our special link to get your discount. The Titanic had been sailing across the Atlantic for about a week. Passengers were enjoying the luxury accommodations. The ship's design and engineering were state-of-the-art. Nothing was going to go wrong. It was during the early hours of April that lookout Frederick Fleet spotted an iceberg directly in the path of the ship. He rang the bell 3 times, which alerted Captain Smith. The captain came up on deck to assess the situation. They were probably going to sail right into it. He turned the wheel hard to starboard, but it was too late. There was a long, scraping sound as the ship hit the iceberg along its starboard side. The damage wasn't too bad, or so they thought. They took a lifeboat out into the water to inspect the damage. It looked worse than they anticipated. There was a large gash about 55 feet long and 9 feet wide. This was not looking good. Captain Smith knew he needed to get the ship out of the water immediately. He ordered the engines to full speed ahead. As soon as they cleared the dangerous waters near the iceberg, he would turn the ship around and head back to New York where they could get the ship repaired. The next morning, they would be fine. As the passengers slept soundly in their cabins, the crew worked quickly to make repairs to the damaged hull. They knew that they only had a few hours until sunrise, and they had to be ready in time. But how bad was the damage, really? Was the Titanic doomed from the start? The ship had been designed to be virtually unsinkable. This was due to its double bottom and watertight compartments. In theory, if one of the ship's compartments flooded, the others could stay dry. The watertight doors could be closed off so the flooding wouldn't spread. Even if some of the compartments flooded, there was still enough buoyancy in the other sections to keep the ship afloat. But that was in theory. In reality, the watertight doors weren't as tight as they should be. The rivets holding the plates together were brittle and the steel was very weak. At those points, the water pressure was immense. Even a small crack could allow water to pour through the compartment. Once that happened, the ship would sink faster than anyone could react. And that is exactly what happened to the Titanic. But the people aboard the ship had no idea. They thought that the Titanic would be able to sail into the harbor under its own power. What they didn't realize was that the ship was slowly filling with water. And as the sun rose over the horizon, it illuminated something that made the crew's hearts sink. When the sun came up, it revealed that the sea around the ship was perfectly calm. If there were waves crashing against the hull of the ship, the crew might have been able to understand how serious the situation was. But the sea was glass. This meant that any leaks in the hull would become apparent. The crew had hoped that they would be able to repair the ship. But when they looked out over the surface of the water, they could see that there was already an oil slick forming. This meant that the pumps could do little to prevent the ship from sinking. They sent out an SOS signal to nearby ships, hoping that someone would come to rescue them. But as they waited, they prepared lifeboats. By now, they knew that the ship was doomed. All that was left to do was wait for the inevitable. But when they looked up into the night sky, they saw something that gave them hope. The stars seemed to be shining brightly, promising a clear night. Maybe their luck would turn around. The weather was in their favor. And since there was no wind, the Titanic could remain steady in the water. Just maybe they would survive after all. But the crew had no way of knowing what the skies really had in store for them. Had they known, they may have realized that the ship had already been doomed from the start. At that moment, the passengers aboard the Titanic felt safe and secure. Many of them were partying to celebrate the captain's safe return. But the crew knew better. When they looked up at the night sky, they could see that the stars were ominous. It was almost as if the heavens themselves were against them. The ship's astronomer, John S.D.E. Houston, was taking measurements of the stars. He was observing a cluster of stars in the Gemini constellation. He recorded the exact positions of the stars and made notes in his logbook. But when he looked up at the stars again, he noticed that something was different. He turned to the passenger next to him and said, "Did you ever see such beautiful stars?" She replied that she had never seen anything like it. Then the astronomer said, "It means death." That sounded dramatic, but the passenger just laughed it off. She couldn't possibly believe that the stars were trying to tell her something about her fate. But the astronomer knew what he was talking about. He had studied the stars for years, and he understood their language. He told the woman that he was glad she was going to survive, but he had to leave. He walked away from the party and went up on deck. It was there that he saw the stars clearly for the first time. The stars in the Gemini constellation were bright and clear. They were almost like a spotlight shining down on the ship. He knew that this was a bad omen, but he couldn't warn the others. They would never believe him. He watched as the stars twinkled above him, and he made a final prediction. He knew that the stars would be their last view of the world. To this day, people are fascinated by the story of the Titanic. Every year, millions of tourists visit the Titanic Museum in Massachusetts. They want to learn more about the ship that couldn't sink, but many of them don't realize that the ship was doomed from the start. The captain and crew knew that the ship was in trouble. When they looked up into the night sky and saw the stars, they knew that they were in grave danger. The stars were telling them that their fate was sealed, but even they didn't realize just how dangerous the night would become. Now check out what really sunk the Titanic, or watch this video instead.